For our COBT viewers, it's Maynard, Mike, and Jeff here with something truly exciting and special. We're excited today to have Jun Nishizawa. He's an executive vice president and CEO of the natural gas group of Mitsubishi Corporation. He's joining us from Tokyo, where he'll obviously talk about the vantage point from there, his experience working at Mitsubishi Corporation since 1986. He began as an oil trader. You may know this, but Mitsubishi Corporation has been a real pioneer in LNG, and we're super excited to talk to Nishizawa-san about his career, LNG, the history of LNG, everything that Mitsubishi Corporation has been doing. Let me stop talking and just say, Nishizawa-san, we're super excited to have you join us. Thank you.
Well, Maynard-san, thank you very much for introducing me. Hi, everybody. I'm Jun Nishizawa from Tokyo, Mitsubishi Corporation. I'm really excited about this opportunity, and well, thank you very much for inviting me this. Anyway, okay.
Mike, what would you add as we jump in with Nishizawa-san?
Yeah, Maynard, things are a little choppy today, but let's really talk about what's going to happen this week and some of the conversations we heard at CERAWeek and stuff of that nature. But first on the economic front, I think it's a very light week for economic stats, but most people are looking at Friday's PCE deflator of around 2.5%. As you recall, last week the Fed basically left rates unchanged. Talk about they're on a glide path to 3 rate cuts, and so we'll see what happens. I kind of find it hard to comprehend that we're going to actually have rate cuts, and the reason why we say that is because economic stats still look good. Commodities prices have come up. Everyone's talking about load growth, electricity prices going up over the next couple of years. So we see cyclical as well as secular aspects for inflation. So we'll see how things play out there. From the standpoint of commodities, think what we're watching on WTIs. WTI has been above $80 a barrel for the last couple of weeks, so it seems to be well supported. Crude oil time spreads are in backwardation, and physical markets look tight. The second thing we'd say about crude oil is last week the IEEJ came out and basically reversed their stance. If you recall, in the last 6 or 9 months, they've been really talking about the 2024 supply and demand being in surplus. They reversed that and said it's going to be in deficit. So that's giving some support to crude oil prices. As far as natural gas prices, it seems like every week we hit another low. We're around $1.55 an M for a prompt price. And the reason that is that the U.S. natural gas storage surplus is around 690 BCF, which is 42% above average. And so that's going to be problematic. It's just going to take some time to whittle that down. The other thing we'd say about natural gas is that lower 48 natural gas production this week averaged below 100 BCF a day. If you recall, over the last 6 or 7 weeks, it's been around 103, 104 BCF. So, we're just going to have to see a hot summer. We're going to have to see production being curtailed. And then I think the storage surplus will be worked down, but it's just going to take some time to do that. The last thing we'd say on commodity is what happened here over the last 24 hours. We saw a bridge in Baltimore get damaged. And the reason that's really, really interesting and important is that, a lot of coal exports go through the port of Baltimore, product exports as well, and also autos and stuff of that nature. So you're going to see some short-term impact to that bridge being down. How long it's going to be down, who knows? But it's an important bridge for sure. Now, as far as energy thoughts, it's really interesting to me as we're coming up on the end of the quarter here, and energy, S&P energy sector is up around 11%, and the S&P 500 is up around 9 to 10%, and Nasdaq's up 9 to 10%. And the reason I think it's important is it's just all this AI craze and it really like the breadth of the market is really favoring tech, but energy is outperforming. On the other hand, though, alternative energy is down about 13% year to date. So clearly traditional energy names are outperforming alternative renewable names quite substantially this year. And they have been doing that for the last couple of years. So something to note. One of the other things we wanted to talk about was CERAWeek. CERAWeek was last week. We were there, and I think the main takeaway that we had is that the energy transition dialogue is really, really becoming more balanced and much more pragmatic. We took away 4 key items from the conference. First, AI discussions on just about every panel, just everywhere AI was being discussed. The second thing is electricity load growth, just about in every discussion. Most people expect it to be substantial, but it's not only going to be substantial in the US, but globally. The third thing is just the energy commodity dialogue was just very constructive here. And maybe it's just because crude oil is up, but that really surprised me. And the last thing is on permitting reform. A lot of talk on permitting reform, and and why we need permitting reform, because we don't get permitting reform. How are we going to grow AI? How are we going to build the electricity grid? So a lot of discussion around there. And so, the last thing we really want to talk about, given that we have our Japanese guest today, is, hey, what has the Japanese stock market been doing over the last year or so? Well, over the last year, the Nikkei is up around 50%, and Mitsubishi Corporation is up around 140%. I'm going to say that again, 140%. So it's done really, really well. The other interesting thing to me is, it seems, I've been in this business for a very, very long time, and the Nikkei really was just going sideways for decades, it seemed like. Well, the Nikkei now is over 40,000. It's at an all-time high, and the last time we were at these levels was in December of 1989. That was 35 years ago, and I hate to say it, I was in the business then. So it's been a long, long time. And so with that, Maynard, I look forward to the discussion with our guests today, and we'll hand it back to you.
Jeff, anything you'd throw in?
Yeah, just to tag along to some of Mike's comments around CERAWeek, and to tie it together with our guest from Mitsubishi Corporation today, I really took away two things from CERAWeek that have applicability to today's discussion. One, I hesitate to call developing world, global north, global south, but I just say that the voice of the non-U.S., non-Western European folks in and around energy and energy policy, that voice, they continue to find strong footing. Obviously, the Saudi Aramco's CEO, Amin Nasser's comments grabbed a lot of attention, but in another panel discussion, one of the executives from Southeast Asian oil company made the comment, you can't have an energy transition without Asia. The population's around 2/3 of the global total, and before too long, the region is going to comprise roughly half of global GDP. So that really, it was a couple of handful of facts that really, drove that home for me. And then secondly, I'd say counter to some of the past CERAWeeks and past energy transition discussions, it seemed like it became okay to talk about a number of the new solutions being more expensive. Now, you can talk about cost of carbon, et cetera, bringing those more in parity to some of the traditional solutions, but in a whole host of panels, whole host of discussions, it seemed like it became okay just to recognize that some of the new things are going to be more expensive than some of the existing things, and that was just not part of the discussion in the last few years.
Okay, great. Nishizawa-san, again, thank you so much for being with us. We've got good friends here in Houston who introduced us to you, who said you would be a great person to visit with about energy policy, LNG, and just your long and storied career. One place to start, I think sometimes people get a little confused on Mitsubishi Corporation, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, the various entities. Tell us just a little bit about Mitsubishi Corporation.
Wow. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for asking who we are. And actually, it's a little bit complicated and complex, but I'd like to start with the brief history of the Mitsubishi company, which began its operation in 1987. Excuse me, in 1870. Sorry, in 1870. That's the when original Mitsubishi company began its operation. That was right after Shogun period, and I shouldn't say we, but original Mitsubishi company started its operations with maritime shipping. And subsequently, it diversified into various sectors, including finance and warehousing and coal mining and shipbuilding and insurance, and becoming, anyway, a massive corporate group back then in Japan. However, following the end of the World War II in 1946, Mitsubishi was dismantled into hundreds of pieces. I don't remember how many pieces, but it was more than 100, and probably around 200 pieces. And each piece became independent entities, and then gradually some pieces got merged and evolved into their present forms. Now there are about 30 to 40 companies. Sorry, I don't remember exact numbers of number of the companies that within the Mitsubishi Group. but 30, 40 companies and the Mitsubishi Group existing now. And together with bank, I mean the Mitsubishi Bank and the Mitsubishi Heavy Industry, we are called so-called three sisters of Mitsubishi Group of companies. So we have the same founder, and we share the same Mitsubishi logo, mark, known as the three diamonds. And we also share the three corporate principles set by the second president of the original Mitsubishi company ages ago. But each company has a different focus, and each company is basically independent from one another. So probably I should explain what our company, Mitsubishi Corporation, does. Well, Mitsubishi Corporation began as a trading company, simultaneously funding in logistics and the supply chains necessary for trades. And today, it conducts a large-scale investment and associated trading on a global scale across various sectors, including energy and mining, automobiles, infrastructure, power generation, real estate, chemicals, food, and convenience stores, and more. Energy, my group, particularly LNG, is one of the three pillars of our net profit, together with mining and automobile business. That's it.
No, that's great. And it gives a sense of the scope of everything you see at Mitsubishi Corporation, which is really incredible. I mentioned in your introduction, you're the CEO of the Natural Gas Group. Could you talk about the Natural Gas Group and just all the activities that are going on in your group?
Okay, thank you for asking again. And Natural Gas Group is, well, literally natural gas. And particularly, we are concentrating on the LNG project development and export, import, and trading, right? And okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about history of LNG business. LNG is, as everybody knows, relatively young energy source in comparison with the other fossil fuels, such as oil and coal. The first regular commercial sea transportation ever was in 1969. The technology to liquefy gas and transport LNG on a ship was available in 1950s, but it wasn't fully commercially adopted until the two Japanese utilities signed the first long-term sales and purchase agreement with Alaska LNG project in 1967. So let me talk a little bit about background, why we started LNG. In 1960s, Japan entered a period of rapid economic growth and faced two key challenges. The first challenge was the combating air pollution caused by rapid economic growth and industrialization. And the other one was the securing a stable energy that was fundamental, essential to the Japan's economic growth. So faced with these, the two challenges, Japanese utilities started to explore for alternative energy to coal and turned to look for ways to import natural gas, which emits much less CO2, NOx and SOx. And it was the two Japanese utilities in Tokyo, Tokyo Gas and Tokyo Electric, that underwrote the first commercial LNG project by committing to purchase LNG for 15 years. And Mitsubishi Corporation, we acted as an agent for the Japanese utility companies to negotiate with the Alaska LNG sellers and provide credit assurance that was required back then. And the deal took years, actually, to formulate. But after a long and persistent negotiation, the first ever long-term sales contract was agreed. What the two Japanese utilities started was soon joined by other utilities in Japan, which then expanded to Korea and Taiwan as demand grew. So did the number of producers. So over the, say, 60 years of history of LNG business, the industry has gone through several stages of transformation to become the more than 200 billion US dollar industries at the $10 per MMBTU, as we see today. Well, Mitsubishi Corporation's function has evolved with the industry from being a buyer's agent to our marketer of LNG or finance arranger or the shareholders in the LNG project, and then to upstream, and then to operator of LNG project. And today, we, Mitsubishi Corporation, participate in 12 LNG projects globally, including one under construction in Canada. And those 12 producing projects in total supply approximately 100 million ton or 25% of the global LNG demand. They are, to name some, Brunei, Malaysia, Australia, Indonesia, and Russia, and Oman, and of course, United States of America. That's where we are.
Oh, that's fantastic. One question for you on LNG, because you've seen it, you've seen so much of that history. The basic technology, I think most of us understand that we've come up with, floating regas. We've come up with, floating gasification. We've done a lot of things, but is the basic technology of taking natural gas and making it cold and putting it on a ship, has that changed much in the last 20 years? Is there much chance for additional breakthrough there in how that's done?
I really don't think so. Actually, the basic technology hasn't been changed a lot, particularly when it comes to the liquefaction itself. The technology remains the same. As you know, gas has to be cooled down to the minus 162 centigrades, and that is it actually. And of course, when it comes to the terminal things like floating, for example, storage, or the offshore floating, the production, that is kind of new. But basic technology hasn't been changed a lot. That's my understanding.
And Nishizawa-san, so that was a great history you were giving us in Japan. Some of the first LNG started coming into the country in the late 60s. What's the size today of the LNG market in Japan? I think we'll have to do some conversions here, maybe on tons and BCF and things like that. But I'm just trying to get a sense of the Japanese gas market and how big it is.
Okay, let me put it this way. Total energy demand, global energy demand is currently 400 million ton, 400 million ton. And I think it is about, roughly speaking, sorry, I don't have the exact number, but roughly speaking, it's about 15% of the total natural gas consumption in the world. It could be 20%, it could be 10, but somewhere between 10 and 20, that's my understanding. Okay, so LNG is a portion of the total the natural gas, demand. And mainly LNG has been used in the past, Japan and Korea and Taiwan. That was, I say, until the 1980s. I think those three countries, the share in the global market was most of that. And United States of America used to import a little bit of LNG. You used to have 3 or 4 terminals, LNG import terminals, but that was not fully utilized. Other than that, I can't recall the big importers. And then gradually the country to import LNG the grown, and the current number I don't exactly remember. It's probably going to be like it's probably like 20 countries or more or less. But anyway, to answer your question a little more precisely, talking about Japan now, we import approximately 70 million ton of the LNG. When the Fukushima took place about 10 years ago, then our import went up to nearly or more than 90 million, but that was a technical limit. And now, our consumption is something like 70 million. We imported, I think, 80 a couple of years ago, but now, the nuclear is coming back a little bit. So our LNG consumption is declining down to 70 million. And this is the status quo. Am I answering your question right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's very helpful. Thank you. Well, one question for you just on attitudes in Japan. I think Mike and Jeff, all of us were at the CIRA conference last week here in Houston, and there's always talk about natural gas, and while we're huge fans of natural gas, we think it's a great fuel. There's always some people who have concerns about how long we're going to be using it and its future. What are the attitudes about natural gas in Japan? You use so much of it. Is it seen as a clean fuel and you don't really debate that much? Or are there some people in Japan who question the long-term usage of natural gas in Japan?
Well, okay, it's a big question actually, and it's a question which is not easy to answer, to be honest. But due to the big wave of the decarbonization in the last, let's say, 5 years or nearly 10 years, Japan is trying to increase the renewable. Of course, the first priority is, in a sense, as a government, it's the nuclear. We really want to have more nuclear, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, that's national, the consensus. Still, we have kind of big allergy, strong allergy against, the nuclear. That's, the more than 50% of the Japanese people's sentiment. But having said that, nuclear is very important source of energy. So government is trying to, come back to the trying to increase, the number of the nuclear units coming back after Fukushima. Okay, so that's number one priority. And second priority for the government is to increase the renewables. That's also very, the fashion in a sense. Having said so, the Japan's situation, geographical condition is not that much suitable for the renewables. We don't have a big, the flat land, actually. 70% of the Japanese land is mountain. And we have already put a lot of the solar, the power panel. So per flat land, I think we are by far number one in the land, in the world. I think the second is Germany, but we put a lot of the solar panel. So the area-wise, the percentage-wise, per flat land, we are the biggest, and this is reaching to a limit. And so now the eyes are turning to the the wind, but the wind condition is also not good. And if we go offshore, then our seabed, goes very deep, suddenly. So there's no big, and great, condition, site for the wind, the mills in Japan. Now, I have to ask about, your question, which is how we perceive, the natural gas. Natural gas is very important. Natural gas is very important. We are going to lower as much as possible the coal consumption, and then fulfilling the gap is always has to be natural gas. So having said that, plan-wise, the government plan is to increase renewable and the nuclear, and then the also government is envisaging the future power demand is going to be lowered somewhat. And then the gap to fulfill is going to be smaller, meaning that, as I said, 70 million tons is the current consumption of LNG in Japan, but it is supposed to be going down to, let's say, 50 plus million tons by 2030. That is current government plan. Having said that, that may be a little bit unrealistic, to be honest. So nuclear won't come back that big, that much. And also renewables, the pace to expand is much slower than government expect. So in that case, the amount of LNG we consume is going to be much bigger than government, the projection, which is 50 million. So probably I will say in 2030, 70 million is going to be lowered, but it's probably going to sit somewhere between 70 million and 60 million, something like that.
Yeah, Nishizawa-san, you talked a little bit about LNG. You talked a little bit about renewables. You spoke a little bit to nuclear. I'd really like to hear about what your thoughts are on hydrogen. One of the CERAWeek themes was hydrogen, and it sounds like there's not a lot of momentum. It seems to be kind of going backwards a little bit. What is Mitsubishi doing, and what is Japan doing with hydrogen?
Okay. Well, it's again difficult, the question to answer. My answer is doesn't necessarily reflect, the Mitsubishi Corporation's position. But I am a little bit skeptical about, hydrogen, to be honest. Japanese government is pushing hydrogen a lot. But, as everybody is aware, it's very expensive. Particularly, we need to import, the hydrogen, whether it is green hydrogen or clean hydrogen. Anyway, we've got to import. And importing hydrogen and spread it across the country is very, very difficult. But at the same time, I would like to say ammonia could prevail a little bit. Ammonia, some people say, hydrogen is okay, but ammonia is not. And a lot of people say the reason why ammonia is not is because it's nothing but, prolonging the life of coal power plant, actually. This is a reason, but I think it's kind of, how shall I say, ridiculous. Ammonia is nothing but a hydrogen. It's a different form of hydrogen, actually. And actually, countries like Japan and countries like Korea and countries like in Asia, for example, most of Asian countries still need coal power plant. It is a fact, actually. It is a real situation. So lowering the carbon emission out of the coal power plant is very important, and to do so, ammonia is essential. Ammonia is necessary. So at present, with the current technology, I think up to 20%, we can mix ammonia in the coal power plant, and in the future, that ratio could go much higher, actually. So this is the reason why I support. One of the reasons I support ammonia. And different reason is the ammonia can be used as a fuel for the ships, which is the big emitter of the CO2. So those are the two reasons. Of course, there are other reasons, but I would say ammonia should also be well perceived. And talking about hydrogen, actually, it's, as I said, it's expensive, and we have to import hydrogen. But we really have to consider what after importing, the hydrogen to Japan. Then we have to deliver that hydrogen. But how? Delivering hydrogen is not that easy, actually. We can't use the existing natural gas pipeline network. And that's a reason why Mitsubishi Corporation is strongly pushing natural gas or E-LNG. And I'm not really sure how much you are familiar with natural gas, but it is a product made from clean hydrogen and recycled CO2. And if we manufacture natural gas outside of Japan and use it as a feed gas of LNG, then that LNG or E-LNG made from natural gas shall be counted as CO2 neutral, as the amount of CO2 used for natural gas generation and the amount of the CO2 exhausted when such E-LNG is used in Japan is theoretically the same. And Japanese government targets 1% of city gas to be replaced by natural gas by 2030 and 90% by 2050. Such a challenging target set by the Japanese government implies how serious Japan is to reduce CO2 from the heating sector. And Mitsubishi Corporation, announced a new project called REACH4 in August 2023. And that is an E-LNG project in the United States with our partners, including 3 major Japanese gas utilities and Sempra in the United States. Sempra is our partner of Cameron LNG in Louisiana. Of course, the supply cost of such E-LNG is not cheap at this point in time, but our study shows it can be lower than that of the the hydrogen when it arrives arrives the Japan's the shore. And furthermore, as I said, we need to take into consideration that E-LNG can utilize all the existing LNG and gas-related infrastructures, which includes liquefaction and shipping and receiving terminal and pipeline system and combustion equipment as well. Now, on the contrary, if we want to deliver imported hydrogen through the pipeline network, we will need to build new infrastructure almost from scratch. And that requires astronomical financial and human resources that almost no country can afford. And even in Japan is a small country, as you know. The size is only the 1/20th or something like that compared with the United States. But even in Japan, we have more than 260,000 kilometers of natural gas pipeline network. And to the best of my knowledge, in the United States, you have 3 million miles of the pipeline network. And so not using gas, whether it is natural gas or natural gas, essentially means wasting one of the biggest infrastructure that mankind built, spending ages and lots of yens and dollars.
Nishizawa-san, that was really good background perspective. I wanted to go back to the LNG market overall. You discussed the supply dynamics in terms of scale of Japan, but Mitsubishi Corporation is involved in, as you mentioned, 12 projects globally, kind of spanning the globe. I was curious to get your perspective on how you see the trajectory of the LNG market overall, kind of zooming out beyond just Japan over the next decade or so.
Yeah, this is really a big question. And let me put it this way. First of all, LNG demand, I said, it's about 400 million ton now. It's about 400 million ton. And lots of the companies and the think tanks predict it's probably going to go up to 600 to 700 million ton by 2040. So within, say, 16 years or 15 years, it's going to go. It's not double, but more than 1.5 times. It's going to grow, and there's no doubt about it, I think. And I think then the big question is, who will supply this substantial quantity of energy? 400 million ton now, and it's going to go up within 15 or years or so to 600, 700 million ton. Who is going to be the supplier? Obviously, US and Qatar. Those two countries are set to be the major, suppliers. Probably in 2040, providing 60 to 70% to the global market. US now supply about 100 million tons of LNG, but probably the number is going to go up to double or more than double. Permission-wise, I think US government has given the permissions equivalent to 300 million ton per annum to US, the LNG projects. I'm not really sure how much out of these, 3 million will be materialized, but I would say at least 200 million ton from the United States, and Qatar probably 150. So two countries alone, at least minimum, 350 million, which is in the case of 600 million ton market, more than 60%. And if it goes up, it's more than that anyway. And let's look at other countries. And, currently Australia is supplying 80 million ton, and Asia as a whole, maybe 50 plus. So in total, let's say 150 million ton is being supplied from the Asia Pacific, the region. But again, I would say this number is going to go down very sharply towards the future. Most likely, Australians' LNG supply is going to go down to, let's say, half or less than half. I was in Canberra and had a discussion with the ministers, but of course, they are aware that the future of Australian LNG export capability, but it's anyway inevitable. So Asia Pacific region, the number is going to go down, probably minus 100 million out of the 150 million now. And what else? Canada has some potential, but not that much actually. And Africa, East Africa particularly, has got a big potential, but various constraints and construction of the new energy projects are kind of stacked. And so by 2040, if Africa can supply 100 million ton, I would give Africa big hands actually. So that's the situation. So I like to say towards 2040 or 2050, we still need a lot of LNG. Actually, LNG is going to be the very crucial energy for the world to achieve the carbon neutral. But the supply capability of the global, supplier market is fairly limited and it's very unstable. That's why I think here comes the importance of the United States, the policy in conjunction with the LNG export. And I don't think I've got to say a lot about it, but the current statement by U.S. government is very how shall I say? It gave a big impact to the credit of the U.S. LNG, and it's a really pity. That's what I want to say.
One question, Nishizawa-san, that was very super interesting to hear your summary of those countries and where the supply might come from. When you were talking about Australia, is that market declining in its ability to supply LNG? Is that just because of their geological reserves, or is that because they are slowing down their investment and willingness to export LNG?
Well, it's a good question, actually. But before answering your question, sorry, I forgot telling you the capability of Russia. Of course, before Ukraine, I thought, the Russia would be able to supply approximately 100 million tons of LNG in 2040. But now, due to Ukraine and things like that, it's the number won't be that actually. So probably at the best, what Russia can do is to maintain the current the LNG production, which is about 25 million tons. But even that number is I don't really know how long they can continue. Now that's the situation. Sorry. And then going back to your question, Australia. Yes, they have resources still. They have the resources to be developed, but lots of constraints. A constraint is the First Nation issue, the same as Canada, and also the environmental restrictions are getting the tighter and tighter. And those are the two major the things. And also due to the recent the decarbonization, the wave budget for the exploration of the new gas asset, both onshore and offshore, has been very much the lowered. And although the oil prices and gas prices has come back compared with the some years ago, and the budget for the exploration hasn't come back. And those are the major reasons why it's kind of destined to decline. But at the same time, Australia is facing the shortage of the domestic gas, particularly on the east coast of Australia. But sooner or later, the same is going to happen on the west coast of the Australia. And Australia, I think the politicians are aware of that, but being aware of it and doing that is not the same actually. So politically, it's not that easy to promote, to encourage the investment. That's where they are.
Nishizawa-san, one of the things that's been coming up in all of these energy transition discussions, particularly in Europe and in some parts of the United States and Canada too, I think, is power, the reliability of power, the cost of power, which places have the best power, if you will, meaning lowest cost and most reliability. And then AI has arrived, which is when you look at the digital lifestyle we're all leading, it looks like we're going to need lots and lots of power at a time when our power systems are looking more expensive and less reliable. Is that something you're talking about in Japan? Is that your similar perspective, that there's a big growth coming in the use of power? Of course, Japan is a very technological society, so AI must be a big topic there. But what would you tell us about all that from your seat?
Well, it's a very good question. I understand this topic has been discussed here and there last week in Sarah, but I'd like to say this a little bit. Okay, well, this is actually what I started to discuss in various occasions in Japan. Actually, we, the Mitsubishi Corporation, has been studying what is going to be the impact of the AI revolution in the the power industry. For example, in Japan, back in 2020, a few years ago, power consumption in information and communication sector was about 11% of the Japanese total power consumption. Now, it really depends on how we put the assumption, but if we actually put a bit radical assumption, then the power demand in this sector is going to be, let's say, 3 times or maybe 4 times bigger by 2030. It's not 2040. I'm not talking about 2040. In some years to come, actually, right? Why this is going to happen? Because, for example, one click of Google consumes about 0.1 kilowatt hour of the power. But if you ask the same question to ChatGPT 4, then the consumption of power is going to be 10 times, or put it, depending on the assumption, it could be 100 times bigger, the power consumption, because the machine and the machine start to talk with each other, and we don't have. I mean, we don't know what is going on in the background of the answer from the ChatGPT 4 or the 5 is coming anyway by the end of this year. So this is really mysterious, the area, and the power consumption is going to be huge in that case. So I jokingly say EV won't happen because precious power has to be utilized for computers. There's no power left. There should be no power left, send to the cars. The car can be run by, the gasoline. That's it. So this is half jokingly I'm speaking about that. But anyway, not only AI, but IP traffic as a whole, data centers and the semiconductors industries, they consume really a lot of the energy. So world has to prepare for that. That is what I've been telling, and particularly to Japanese government. Now the government is trying to issue the 7th long-term energy focus at the end of this year or the next year, early next year. And now the government started preparation. And then in order to prepare our focus, energy, long-term energy focus in Japan, we really have to have more, how shall I say, flexible predictions of the energy consumption, power consumption in Japan. That's what I've been telling.
The data center demand, I was wondering how the data center thing is playing out in Japan, because you need they're big facilities. You need a lot of power. It's got to be firm power. And Japan is a high technology country, so I assume the need for data centers is quite strong there. Here in the US, Amazon was just part of a purchase of a data center that's powered by nuclear. And so it's a big discussion about the tech companies and what they're going to be doing with data centers. I assume that type of conversation is also going on in Japan about finding standalone power for a lot of these data center type needs.
Yes, exactly. Same thing is happening. But when it comes to the the nuclear, as I said, it's not that easy to construct the new nuclear. So that is kind of out of option. But of course, the big tech companies and data centers, and they require green, power, which is, as I said, limited because of the limit of renewable, because of the limit of the nuclear. So green power is very limited. So we are kind of stuck in a sense. Actually, not only data center, semiconductor industries now, belatedly we started to build a semiconductor factory, which is not the very top the generations and type of semiconductor, but is a little old type semiconductor factories. But there are two semiconductor factories being built, or the plant, one in the Kyushu area, south of Japan, and one in north of Hokkaido, north of the Japan. But the power consumption can be the bottleneck. And semiconductor in Japan is not that big, actually. I mean, the semiconductor factory, but to the best of my knowledge, for example, the big semiconductor the company like Samsung, for example, there a new factory now being built in Pyeongtaek. If it's completely built, it requires as much as 10 nuclear power units, which is about 10 gigawatt. Huge, actually. So we are facing, I mean, the information communication sector, we are really facing the shortage of the power. We will face more. That's my observation.
So, Japan is also, geographically, you're obviously very close to North Korea, to China. The geopolitical concerns in the region are just higher, given who the neighbors are. How would you say that we've now in the U.S. we are talking about China as an adversary of the U.S. How is Japan's geopolitical situation affecting some of its energy discussions? What do you notice? Because I think there's a lot of conversation here about energy security and onshoring, things like that. What is happening in Japan on those topics?
Okay, until the 2 years ago, until the Ukraine, and the war in Ukraine, Japan was a little bit relaxed, actually. Of course, compared with the United States, Japan doesn't have substantial natural resources, so we've got to import most of the energy from the abroad, and we know that, actually. Therefore, we've been paying a lot of attention to the energy security, and so energy mix is really important. Catch in expressing Japanese energy security, namely nuclear. And also the fossil fuels, not only gas, oil, but also coal, including coal. We really have to have the nice, the mix. And now then renewable is coming in. So we really have to have the nice mix. That's really the important for the security of energy supply. And our policy is basically based on that energy mix, nice balance, how to keep the nice balance. And of course, we have to lower the cost. That's one thing. But also, unless we have the good balance, and then our energy security is, the risk. And now, currently, after Ukraine, we again is focusing on this, and therefore here comes the kind of the dilemma. The more we try to expand the decarbonization by way of, let's say, nuclear and renewable, but there's a technical limit. But the more we have a big vision on these two, then the less we commit LNG import. And that's really a dilemma. And this is what I've been pointing out to the government. In reality, what is going to happen in this sector, nuclear and the renewable, is limited. And the government ambition is too ambitious. And if it's not achieved, then we have to buy LNG. But LNG has to be secured on a long-term basis. That's what I've been telling. The reason why I say this is, look back the 2 years ago or 1.5 years ago. What happened in Europe is because they didn't have the long-term contract of LNG. They needed to buy from the spot market, paying $30 or $40 per MMBTU. And while Japan, we have a huge amount of the long-term contract, which is linked with the oil prices, so price went up. But ultimately, what happened is the Japanese the power bill or gas bill increased, but it's only by about 30%. While in the European countries, the power bill and gas bill went 3 times, 4 times, 5 times higher. So this is nothing but security, having long-term LNG contract. But to do so, we have to have the more accurate and reasonable prediction of the LNG consumption, and that's what and that also comes in. Here comes also the what should be the prediction of the power consumption or energy consumption in Japan in the future. So that's the point actually. Sorry, I messed up a little bit, but
no, I think we got you. So your points were, if the government overestimates what nuclear and renewables can do, it will underestimate its LNG demand. It won't contract long-term for as much as is needed. And all of this is happening at a time when power consumption is going up. So overall, you're going to need more energy anyway. So and Japan did, even though we had a real shock to the system when Russian gas was cut off, Japan still managed through that better than Europe because you had long-term contracts.
Exactly. And more importantly, if future LNG prices went up anyway, regardless it's a short term or long term or spot anyway, if the future LNG becomes unstable, if the procurement of the future LNG is unpredictable, then we would come back to coal. This actually happened in Germany, actually. No matter what we say, we are heading for decarbonization, blah, blah, blah. But if the energy security is risked, and then we have to go back to the coal. And this is more so, not in Japan, this is more so in Asian countries. So Asia needs LNG, and energy supply has to be stabilized. Otherwise, they go back to coal, and they buy more coal. And that is very much against the global decarbonization. So it's really important how United States play in as a supplier, as a stable supplier of LNG. Yeah.
And this was your point, that it was a pity that the United States made this comment about the pause, because the United States should be projecting stability onto long-term LNG markets.
Yeah, but pity is too much to say, but
well, I thought that was your word. Sorry, that was my word.
Well, to some extent, I know that it's kind of political message in the ear of the presidential election. But having said that, let's suppose in 2040 or 2050, our U.S. LNG share gets let's say 40% or 50% of the world. And if U.S. say something like that, or something really, make people how shall I say, make people nervous, then that's gonna give the huge impact to the global energy mix. Yeah.
And Nishizawa-san, one of the things, I want to circle back on AI. One of the things we hear, obviously, is that power demands are going to go up exponentially, and I would agree with that. But what we don't talk a lot about is what is going to be the productivity gains, what are going to be some of the efficiency gains for the country. But instead of talking about that, maybe you can talk about what you're doing at Mitsubishi right now with AI. Are you rolling it out through the organization? Because we heard of several super oil majors at the CERAWeek conference talk about that their organizations are rolling it out through the organization. They are getting productivity gains. Talk about what Mitsubishi is doing.
Wow. It's a little bit difficult question to answer. Okay, before answering that question, actually, certainly the AI's impact to the productivity is very much, how shall I say, expected. And also AI, not only AI, but the new technology could potentially reduce, the power consumption of the information communication sector. One example is Japan's telecommunication company, big company, NTT, Nippon Telephone Telegram. That company is spending a lot of money to develop a new technology called IWON. This is a technology to reduce the power consumption in computer things down to, let's say, 10% of the current, the consumption. So, well, this is to some extent to do with the AI things, and then I think this kind of technology is very important. And now, answering your question, as a Mitsubishi Corporation, we, as I said at the beginning, we've been doing a lot of business. So I can't say on behalf of all business, what we are doing, but we are certainly trying to best utilize, the AI in each, the area, in each sector. For example, mining sector. Well, thanks to AI, the very efficient, the track, the control in the mining, mining area, and that is contributing to the significant reduction of the mining cost. That's a example, and we are running the convenience store, and AI, a lot of AI things being introduced, and those are the examples.
Nishizawa-san, you've been very generous with your time. We really appreciate visiting with you. As we kind of move towards wrapping up, I'm curious, we recently had a guest who was talking about the potential for the US and Europe to work more closely together. And, sometimes the other discussion is the US should be working more closely with its Asian partners. And it's not like the US has to choose necessarily. But do you think, when you think about the US-Japan relationship and how it may continue to evolve over the next 10 years, do you see the countries getting closer, doing more things together, doing more partnerships? Or what do you see in terms of alliances in the Western world?
Well, thank you for asking again. And I think it's super important. I mean, the tightening the energy relationship between the United States and Japan. There are a few aspects, and one is as it has been so, in conjunction with the nuclear, U.S. support to Japan is, I think, essential. And that's one aspect. But this has been done, in the past as well. And now, in conjunction with, for example, the new generation energy, such as ammonia or even hydrogen or the natural gas, as I mentioned, as I said, we really think U.S. is the best, the partner and the best place in many senses. Of course, IRA's impact is huge, but not only that, the stability of the country, and also for example, when it comes to CO2 utilization to manufacture, to generate natural gas, you have the CO2 pipeline network as well. So you are very much advanced, and I think that's the reason why we chose the United States of America as the first place to develop e-methane, E-LNG, the project. And so likewise, we should develop that in that aspect. I mean, a new generation, new type of energy development. We should tighten the relationship. And then the third is, of course, the natural gas and LNG. And unfortunately, the situation of the Panama Canal is not that good at this point in time because of the lower draft. I mean, the lack of the water. The passage number of the LNG ships to be able to pass, the Panama Canal was significantly reduced at this point in time. But put that aside anyway, U.S. is going to be the most reliable LNG supply, the country for Japan and for most of Asian countries. And I really want to see more, the investment to the United States. And as Mitsubishi Corporation, we are, of course, thinking of expanding the Cameron LNG, but we would like to think more. And that way, and of course, not only Mitsubishi Corporation, other companies should invest more on the United States, in the United States. And then our relationship should be tightened.
Well, Nishizawa-san, we want to say thank you very much for joining us. And also, we know that you're, I believe, retiring at the end of March. And so we want to congratulate you on your incredible career, seeing all the things and doing all the things in energy that you've done. It's a real honor for us to have you on our program.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I'm retiring in a week or so. And actually, I haven't decided, what to do next, but I decided to become our visiting fellow of the IEEJ. IEEJ stands for Institute for Energy Economics Japan. That is under METI. So I will have that, the position for the time being. And I want to cut the relationship with the energy industry. I would like to continue the advocacy on energy and natural gas and LNG. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, wonderful. We'd like to come see you at the IEEJ, and please come see us when you're in Houston. We very much appreciate getting to know you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.